excited to get your story on what are you revolutionizing in HR using AI.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did listen to Tom, the other Tom, on Wednesday. So yeah, it was definitely good to hear from him. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Purple Patch Consulting and what he's working on too. So yeah, good to be here.
And Tom, tell us more about your fantastic application of AI into the recruit world.
Absolutely. Yeah, so look, Vpply. We started in the middle of last year, so it is relatively new. Basically turning a concept into reality. And what it is, it's a video job site. So, I think in terms of recruitment and in terms of the job board space, there's quite a lot out there. So, we can talk about my background a bit later on, but there's not too many video-based job boards. There's video applications in recruitment, but that initial starting point, using video, that's where we decided there's a gap in the market, and we wanted to start it up, exploit it, grow it, and implement AI into it.
So a lot of people are familiar with video-based submission. We ourselves, we use video-based as part of the recruitment process.
Sure.
I think what you guys do is very unique. So help us unpack that, and how is this different to what I guess a lot of candidates, but also a lot of businesses who are implementing a lot of video-based, video as part of of the application and interview. How is this different?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you're spot on, right? I think video in recruitment is not new. So it's a good indicator of things to come, and there's a lot of them out there, and they're growing and they're getting bigger and more sophisticated and implementing AI. We are different in a way that this is the very first step of the application process. This is pre-CV, pre-cover letter, pre-anything, right? So as a hiring manager, the first thing you see is actually a video from an applicant to your job. So yeah, the implications are quite interesting because traditionally, if you're a recruiter, you turn up to work, you open your inbox, and there's thousands of CVs there for you to screen. There are, different bots and different tech to sort of sort it out and give you someone who's a bit better than the other, depending on certain algorithms. But what we're actually presenting here is an immediate shortlist. So we're actually presenting a smaller pool of candidates, but ones that actually took the effort to apply properly, to put themselves out there. So yeah, that's the difference. We're starting the whole recruitment process with video.
And how are organizations gearing up for that? Because this is a very new concept. I kind of think, unless you think differently, I'm just thinking
It is.
Mainstream. What do? You put a job ad out there, right? That's not necessarily video based either. You put a job posting into any number of one of those job boards, and almost by default there is an application process. It's set of forms together with your cover letter plus your CV or resumes, etc., and video tends to come only after a certain point.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's it, right? So we are actually flipping the process around. I think as a concept, when we thought of it, a couple of years ago, let's kill CVs. Let's kill it altogether. No cover letters, no more paper. Save the trees, by the way. So that's a little bonus. But yeah, it's hard to do that overall, to actually kill the CVs. But what we, as we sort of develop the product, we discover the importance of CVs, at least for now. But yeah, let's flip it around, right? So let's actually look at the individual, see who they are, see how they present, see the way they communicate. Check that first impression, right? That's so important in so many different jobs. If you go, you know what, this individual is exactly who I'm after, it's time to check the credentials. Why do we have to do it the other way? Why our CV, why is that the norm to start the application process? When it's so impersonal and it's so easy to do. I touched on my background, so working at Adzuna and Indeed, I just found it's so easy to apply, right? There's Seek, there's Monster, global platforms. You could sit on a train and apply for 50 jobs in a couple of minutes. what are those jobs? Am I really serious about applying for them? Is that the answer? Just to kind of spit out applications everywhere. So yeah, like I said, let's put video first, CV second, and over time, let's see what happens, right? Maybe there'll be a lot less focus on the CV and a lot more on that video. Instead of doing a 30-second video, it might be a minute. Instead of a minute, it might be 2, and we'll be looking for different, key points in terms of the way that people communicate, the way they answer questions, and obviously that's where people like yourself come in, right? Implementing AI. How can we do it? What can we do different?
So, I mean, I think most organizations are probably thinking, how is this going to change my current processes? Because a lot of these processes are so engraved into the business. I mean, large enterprises were probably wondering, oh my God, I mean, that's not going to happen, right? I don't know. And then small organizations are probably going, I get it, I kind of get it. But, what do you tell to the enterprises in terms of what are the pros and cons of doing video-based applications on the front end?
Yeah, look, another good question, right? Super relevant. No one wants to change what's working, especially when you're talking about enterprise. So yeah, one of the first things that I really wanted to focus is not to disrupt the process, the way that, hiring managers, recruiters, people that are in charge of the process do what they do. So the focus is on the integrations with different applicant tracking systems. We definitely don't want to deviate. We don't want people to go outside of their platforms and just to go straight to Vpply and do everything on Vpply. Again, that might come later. So yeah, enterprise companies, I've been approached already, right? So again, that's the exciting part. Even at the very beginning of me, turning this concept into reality with my co-founders, they've approached and said, how do we do it? How can we, put our jobs on your site? And it wasn't the right time, right? Because we need those integrations. Once a recruiter or a hiring manager goes outside of the system, we have a problem because, just the expectations of tracking everything and monitoring how things are progressing and how does Vpply compare against another job board, it's all very important. So I'm very conscious of not deviating and not stepping outside of what those enterprise solutions are currently using.
So in terms of the real problems that you're trying to solve with your approach, where is it? What types of customers? What types of job hire? What specific areas that you think is where the approach that you're taking with video-based applications right on the front end? What's your best use case here?
Yeah, it's almost the question, how do we start, right? Why do we do it? The big picture is, I guess, unemployment, right? It's offering someone some different way of applying for a job. COVID's opened up a huge can of worms, and a lot of different technologies have formed because of COVID. A lot have excelled. We're talking about Zoom is a everyday term now. No one knew what it was a year ago. So I think, just using that video component, right? How can we do it? What can we do differently? How can we drive job seekers to use video instead of CVs? So I think unemployment, that's the big picture, right? Youth unemployment, they were hit hard, right? So in terms of all the different sectors, the youth unemployment is the biggest sector that suffered because of COVID. And those people, young individuals, they find it really hard to differentiate themselves from the person next door. They might have an amazing CV. And again, I'm sure you can comment on this because I know that you've met a lot of young, amazing people, over the last couple of years, even here. So how do those individuals stand out? How do they get a go? On a piece of paper, it's a bit hard, but if you actually hear a pitch and an individual goes, look, this is exactly what I'm after. They give you a little bit about themselves, a little bit about the history, what they want, a fun fact about themselves. Suddenly you go, you know what? I'm ready to do a final interview. Let's do it. A piece of the pie is a little bit different to the likes of Seeks, Indeeds and Adzunas, but overall, I'm trying to solve the same problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting as I kind of reflect on our recruitment process, and we bring on board a lot of young graduates,
Sure.
a lot of young graduates in particular, because a lot of the types of skills that we're looking for just doesn't exist. And so we figured out, some time ago, that the best way to bring those skills, and the best way to do this is to actually develop those skills, and providing hands-on experience. And what happens in real world is different from what universities are teaching as well.
Totally.
So being able to bring on board young people who are open-minded and still hungry to learn, plus the skill sets we help them to develop and grow, is amazing. And the types of people we tend to look for, most of these people in the CV, either they struggle to write a CV, especially given that a lot of people that we end up recruiting tend to be not necessarily people from Australia originally.
Sure.
And it's just, English and writing skill may not be particularly the engineering resources, is not their number one strength.
Sure. It doesn't need to be, right?
It doesn't need to be. And it's really, really hard to draw conclusions out of that. I mean, there are some basic things in there that we want to know, like, what was your bachelor's in? If they've done masters, we want to kind of be able to filter that, make some assumptions around what they can't do, what their technical competencies are.
Sure.
But we're hiring them not for that. We're hiring them because we're looking for cultural fit. We're looking for the ability to problem solve. We're looking for soft skills. Because if you have 100 of them apply, well, thousands nowadays.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, what sort of volumes are you getting at the moment?
So most jobs, again, for graduate roles, we get thousands. We get something like somewhere around about, like during the peak of COVID, for each role, we get something like anywhere around 4,000 inquiries a month.
Wow. Yeah, gotcha.
Just inquiries. And the number of applicants per role is in thousands. And if anything, without advertising, and that's just organic. And that has just continued to grow.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing, right? It sounds like a good problem to have, but it's a problem. How do you find the right person, and how do you get back to all those people?
So I think for us, I think we've gone through the process of, obviously step one is to put an ATS system in place, because without one, it was almost impossible. And getting CVs in LinkedIn and getting CVs in an email, and that was not going to happen. And even putting, job ads out, job posts, they still would require us getting into their platforms.
Sure.
So that was not going to work as well. And so for us, putting an ATS was critical, at least as a foundation, and be able to manage that process around that. And then putting all the automations in place for us to be able to very quickly shortlist and pick up the candidates, and then to, for the shortlisted candidates, then take them through a process.
Sure.
And video being part of that.
Yep.
Video being part of that. And obviously after COVID, we've had to, again, completely change that. And then we've been looking at our own processes where we've always had to have a minimum of 3 interviews. And with COVID, we've had to look at our costs and manpower.
Sure.
Secondly, we wanted to have more. We wanted to do more, and we wanted to automate. So we've introduced videos, and doing this over Zoom was not working because the amount of coordination required to
Definitely
do that was a lot more complex. So we then said, well, let's just do asynchronous videos. And, we use one of the popular platforms to help us with the questioning and developing questions.
Sure.
and doing your video interviews. But that said, you still have to have manpower to go and look at hundreds of these videos.
Absolutely.
And then shortlist.
Yeah, 100%. I think, the integration with those applicant tracking systems. So that's exactly right. I think what we are doing is implementing with the likes of Zoho, right? And the job adders of the world and the Broadbeans and so on. So we're not trying to change your recruitment process. It's great that you are using an ATS, right? If you didn't, that'll be even harder for us. So we just want to be a different solution to present those job seekers to you. If you find that the quality coming from us is good, the quantity and so on, it's probably a good idea to shut off the other sources, right? There's no need for you to build that huge army base of CVs when you can get 50 really good videos and shorten your whole hiring process. So yeah, that's where we come in, Callum. And yeah, I mean, it's good to hear your story because it's not uncommon. And that's sort of the reason why we started it. And COVID just accelerated and, made the problem even bigger. How do we come back to the job seekers? How do we, there's a lot of automation in place, but certain people always want to know more, right? And who's going to come back to that job seeker who's asking for more feedback? Like, why didn't I get the job? And please provide more feedback and so on, right? So there's an element of manual tasks that are still needed. So yeah, it is taxing when, if it's taxing for you, I'm sure it's taxing for Canva and Atlassian and Microsoft and Apple and so on, right? So yeah, I think we're looking to solve the big problem of that volume and just shortening the whole process and yeah, the time cost, massive.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities? Is this for the hirer or is this for the candidate?
Look, I mean, I always think of it, in terms of the traffic. For any job board, it's 99% is job seekers. In terms of revenue, 99% of it is employers. So the opportunity has to work on both sides. The feedback from both has been encouraging, right? It's been quite positive. The job seekers are looking for something different. They've always done the same thing. The job boards are very similar, right? I mean, there's specialized job boards in hospitality or retail. There's, the generic overall massive job boards that we know very well. But there's nothing sort of different. Like, how do you show yourself straight away, straight off the bat? So that's what we are doing. When a job seeker can just go, you know what? I've got my camera here. I just walk past a coffee shop. I'm going to apply for a job there right now. I've got my phone. There it is. Done. And I think for the employers, again, it just presents a different candidate pool. And that's a bit of a golden ticket. Everyone talks about, is the candidate I have right now on my database the same one as I'm getting from this job board? Is, and so on and so on. So everyone wants someone different. And we are giving a different pool of candidates. It's people that are not necessarily going to apply, with a CV and cover letter. So yeah, there's definitely some golden nuggets in the pool of candidates that we're presenting so far.
So as a hirer, as an employer, it's great to get this extra pool. Mm-hmm. What have you found other organizations saying to you that have actually implemented that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we're still scaling, right? So that's the first thing. One good thing about what we do is we're not going to bombard anyone with volume of videos. So, and we have a limitation, right? We can actually shut down after 50 videos if that's what you want, right? So we have those sort of tech pieces in play now. The feedback's been, quite positive, right? I think it's just a different pool of candidate. And I know I just talked about it a second ago, but everyone's looking for someone a little bit different. And a lot of people, and I think, with my career history in HR tech, it's very hard to find that unique candidate from a different source. Most people already have it on their database. And that's been a real challenge for all these different job boards out there. Where do you find them? How do you engage with them? Is an ad on TV going to work, or billboard above an airport? Is that really going to work? So I think just offering a different way to apply, that's giving us the differentiator, the point of difference, really.
And what do you say to organizations that may have grandeurs that, we are a company X, and so, volume is not an issue?
Yeah, we say absolutely fine. Try us anyway, right? So yeah, we do have a free model. There's no harm in ticking a box on, your job adder or Broadbean or so on. Give it a go, right? What's the worst that could happen? You might get a couple of videos. You watch them and you might go, you know what? I actually like that. So yeah, at the moment we're not finding too many companies saying no to us, right? Especially with that free part that we can offer. The main reservation is just integrating with the applicant tracking system. So that's the tech piece, which obviously, the bigger we are, the faster we grow, the easier those integrations will come. And some of the, we actually have jobs available in UK, US. We have them, but we just haven't opened up that portal because it's too early, right? We just want to get Australia right. But yeah, we're looking to do a lot more later this year once we have a few more of those integrations going.
So Tom, you speak a lot with multiple types of companies. What types of companies that are saying, wow, this is just for us? I don't know about the other guys, but this is for us and this is going to be a game changer. Give us an example of those types of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we touched on it. I said retail, I said hospitality, I said sales, but I'll give you a slightly different example, like stockbrokers, junior stockbrokers. To be a junior stockbroker, you don't really need much in terms of qualifications. You just need to be hungry. You need to be presentable, maybe not even presentable, but you just need to be articulate, well-spoken, to the point. It's like Wolf of Wall Street. We've all seen it. Can you just pitch that pen to me in 30 seconds and sell it to me? If you can do that on video, you probably have the job. So yeah, those are the sort of companies that originally I didn't think we would be targeting, but we are all of a sudden. Construction companies, labor hire, warehouse packing. So yeah, there's quite a lot of different companies that are very interested in, just saying, hey, what is this? How do we do it? How do we integrate? How do we put our jobs on? What have you got? So, January has been great for us. It's been our busiest month in terms of traffic, in terms of jobs, job seekers, applications. So yeah, I think it's sort of starting to stir the nest a little bit and get a lot more companies interested.
How did you, Tom, get into the startup world? Tell us your story.
Yeah, long version? No, maybe the medium one. I've always been a risk taker, Callum. I think my far background, not to be too long on this question, but I was actually born in Poland. So we moved to Australia when I was 9. I didn't speak any English, just rocked up. Suddenly I'm in Sydney playing cricket, no idea what's going on. So I think I learned resilience and perseverance and, just having confidence in a very strange environment pretty quickly. I've moved on, I taught English in Japan. I sold financial publications in London for 5 years. I actually was a stockbroker in Sydney for a while. I chopped and changed industries quite a lot, and I think I like to fail. I want to test myself, and how far can I push this? Can I actually succeed on it? So once I started at Adzuna, which was probably about 8 years ago, a startup, no one's even heard of it. It had a backing from Fairfax, so it was 50-50 joint venture with Fairfax. So it was well backed as a startup, pretty good partner to have launching in Australia. So I guess my professional history in terms of the HR tech space started 8 years ago with Adzuna, and I was employee number 3, and just thought, this is cool. I really like this. Like, suddenly we are doing something different. We're competing against the likes of Seek and Indeed. How do we do it? Do we, throw bananas with Adzuna on it out the window, like guerrilla marketing? We didn't have huge marketing budget. Do we do ads, or do we do, what do we talk about? Yeah, we did a lot of strange things like coffee carts and things like that, right? Some cheap stuff to get the word out there, online advertising. And look, it worked really well for 2 years. I was lucky enough to actually join Indeed, which are a much bigger player globally. And I think I learned a lot there too. So the mission was very clear for Indeed to be the #1 job site globally, which it probably was at the time, even 6 years ago. But they really wanted to push that in Australia and in Asia. So I think at Indeed, I really learned that mission of having a clear goal and getting it, doing everything in your power to get it. So to go along with my resilience and that sort of, testing yourself and I guess trying to fail in a positive way. I don't want Vpply to fail. But yeah, just putting yourself under pressure. That's kind of encompasses who I am. And, this is the first time I've done a podcast. It's a bit uncomfortable, but just trying something different, right? You really got to test yourself. If you're sitting at home just going, I could have done that. I could have made Tinder. There's a lot of people out there who are talkers, and people like yourself aren't. And I think that's what I aspire to be, just to accomplish something, leave a legacy, and do something good, right? So I think overall, like I said, trying to really solve that unemployment issue, to give other people a point of difference, give them a job, give them a starting point.
And what's been your transition like from that to Vpply? And you go, wow, Vpply, this is the next big thing. This is the unicorn idea. I want to be the Indeed now.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I still remember day one. I kind of sat there with a pencil going, all right, what do I do? All right, I still had my 9-to-5 hat on, waiting for someone to tell me what to do. So in all honesty, I found that transition to be a little bit tricky, right? Initially, especially working for those huge tech giants where you kind of have your patch. You have your clients or your territory, your team. I had to learn a lot of things, right? So obviously, capital raising, how to develop a product, legal, accounting, forecasting. All of a sudden, I was just, bloody hell, like, I've done this, but that's behind now. That's behind now. So you're constantly in a circle, right? And people are tired. Everyone's tired all the time, right? But I think starting a business really, really tests you. How much can you do in, a set amount of time per day? How do you grow? How do you scale? How do you develop a marketing strategy? I think once I learned that lesson, and again, trial and error, just trying to test myself, I really thought after about a month and a half, we've got something here. We've got a product now. We developed a product, put it to market, tested it out. It works. If I click on it and apply, and it works, and you get a notification, you get an application. That's basically when I thought, you know what? Okay, it works. The MVP is done. Let's talk about scale. I think that was the point where, so I guess near the back end of last year is when I came to the realization that, we've got something here. I really can sort of put the Indeed hat behind now, put the 9-to-5 life to the side, and just see what can we do here? How can we grow this nice and quick? How can I use my relationships in the market in Australia, Singapore and abroad as well? And let's give it a crack. So, that's where we are now.
And tell us more about your co-founders, because you've got an amazing team. I love the diversity of your management team, and look, half the battle is just getting the team right. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, I'm very fortunate. The team in place, the co-founders, we're all very different individuals. So Alex Perry, he is a stockbroker, right? So having someone with a financial background, and we actually did meet when we were both stockbrokers. He's continued on. He's got his own capital raising institution. So having Alex on board to, I guess, manage our finances, and he's the unofficial CFO, you could say, and to do that initial cap raise, and make sure everything's, the shareholder certificates are sent out and everything's sort of in place in terms of the financial side. So Alex is key in terms of, projections, forecasting, and so on. James, so I guess he thought of the concept initially. And when we had a chat, I was like, this makes sense. We all found it together, but initially it was James's baby. What can we do with this? So James's background is in marketing. He's very successful in a couple of other businesses. He's generated, I think, $4 million worth of revenue to date, and he's doing really well. So again, me not being too skilled on that marketing side, I was very lucky at Indeed and Adzuna to have teams that could just go, to market and push the brand out. But having James there, yeah, it's great because he developed our marketing strategy, our social media strategy. We just launched our TikTok strategy. Got to do it right, and we do video. So yeah, it's quite a good team, and obviously I'm the expert in the industry. And the three of us, yeah, we complement each other quite well, and we keep each other in check too. We all want different things at different times, but there's a good synergy between us.
What's been like getting a product out? Because I mean, you guys have a great product. I've been fortunate to get some sneak previews into that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to use it, by the way,
Yeah.
and love to chat to you about that. But I mean, it's a great product. Who's the brainchild behind it, and give some insight story about that.
I gotta claim it, right? Come on, like you gave me the mic, Callum. Yeah, look, like I said, James was the one who I guess thought of the idea. How do we do video in HR tech? How do we make people apply with video? So yeah, I guess that initial spark, yeah, James can have it, right? I'll give it to him. Saying that, I guess to form it into reality, I think I was more the crucial part, right? Who's got the contacts, and how do we find someone who worked in this field over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years? And James was lucky enough to know me through Alex. So yeah, I think I'm the only one from the three who's working on it full time. So I've definitely claimed the baby from James. He had it at a very short period of time. Took it off him. So yeah, it's my little baby at the moment. Obviously, we all have different contributions, but yeah, I'm really sort of focusing on pushing it out there to the market.
How much of your effort and time and energy? Because I mean, it's a great product, and obviously, it's got a lot of your experiences that has been baked into that. What's been like? You kind of like developing the product and now maybe transitioning, out of the product development mode to that. But walk us through the product development journey and what's been your experience in that?
Yeah, look, it's pretty tricky, right? To be honest, I think, again, just to be very honest with you and, everyone viewing, it's not easy, right? Like we said before, it's quite easy to have an idea, to have a concept. It's quite hard to put it into reality. How do you do it? So yeah, we laid out the foundations in terms of the wireframes pretty early on. We trademarked the product and we've done all the sort of legal components. But then we had to get to the build, right? And we actually used a company in Romania that Alex used in the past. And they did a really good job, but it was quite challenging just in terms of time zones. And, all of a sudden my time just shifted upside down and I'm on Romanian time because I had to be. So yeah, I think it was pretty tricky to do that part, to develop it initially. Once we started doing integrations, we used a team in Jakarta, in Indonesia. So all of a sudden, my time zones, even more abstract. I'm working on 2 different ones, and there's people in the UK I chat to sometimes. So yeah, sleep was almost a luxury. And I've got 2 little kids at home, 1 and 3, who are keeping me and my wife very busy. So yeah, I think that product build, yeah, not the smoothest ride, but yeah, we got there at the end. And I think very conscious of investors' money. You can't just go to market and find the closest person next to you and just build it because, yeah, you go bankrupt. So I guess I had a bit of trial and error, but yeah, we always sort of kept our costs down to make sure that we can develop an MVP on a relatively small foundation. And obviously, yeah, we're at a point where we can scale now and do a lot more with it.
Did you have a lot of development background in terms of, working with engineers and getting the product out? And if so, did you think initially that this was going to be easy? Has it been harder than you thought, or this was easier than you thought, or, it took 10 times as longer than you thought? I mean,
yeah, I think having Alex and James helped. I mentioned they've got other businesses and they've used the company in Romania before. for me, even the term wireframes, when we started chatting, I had to Google it, right? I mean, this is a long time ago, so I'm a lot more experienced now, but yeah, it's tricky. So I did have to learn a lot. I did find it challenging, but once I caught up, it was actually a lot easier. So, for me to talk about front end, back end, machine learning, full stack, coding stacks, I feel like I'm a developer half the time. I spend so much time with the developers, and it's great. I think as any co-founder or founder, you need to understand the dev. You can't just turn up and go, all right, I'm going to outsource it, because you get lost pretty quickly. So yeah, I think a tip for any young entrepreneur out there, just make sure you understand a bit about tech, and at least hire someone or work with someone who really understands it, and you can chat a lot about the product. That'll be sort of my lesson on, that initial, how do you build a product?
That's a great tip there, right in front. At what point did you kind of feel like, you had to learn it vis-a-vis, you're battling and saying, no, I'm going to stick with what I know and focus on the business, and I'll get more involved when the product matures a bit? Or, at what point do you kind of roll up your sleeves and you go, you know what, I got to learn front end, back end, JSON, all of the
absolutely.
tech jargons?
Yeah, look, pretty early, Callum. Yeah, I think, again, the philosophy of working the 9 to 5, you kind of go, all right, I know what I'm going to expect today. And that's not the case with a startup. Every day is different, and I'm sure, your day today was different from the one yesterday. A lot of unexpected things happen. So yeah, I found pretty early that I had to be a developer to some extent, especially when we started doing the integrations. And like I said, you guys are with Zoho, but there's probably about 50 integrations that I'm thinking about right now that we need to integrate, and they all have different pieces of tech they require from us. Plus, there's 6 or 7 other people working on different pieces of tech and development, front end improvements, and improvements on the back end. And like I said, machine learning and data analytics, right? There's so much out there. So yeah, it's just critical. I think if you neglect it, you get hurt pretty quick. And there's nothing to sell, right? I mean, initially you go, all right, I'm going to go to market on this. Well, if one thing doesn't work, or you didn't test one thing, you're in big trouble. As a co-founder, it's up to me to make sure that it runs well before I, do a pitch or present to anyone, really.
And now you have an MVP, looks great, and it's something that companies are starting to use. What's it been like in your journey transitioning from the product developer to to moving back into commercials and back in your game?
Less challenging than moving to become a developer. Let's put it that way. So I'm actually enjoying coming back home, you could say. I think I'm a sales guy. I'm a bit of a hustler at heart. So yeah, it's good to be back. It feels more natural. I think every strategy that we work on now complements the marketing campaigns, and it's just a lot easier to do a marketing campaign and for me to follow up on with other people. So I definitely am happy to be less of a developer. However, I'm very grateful. I learned a lot along the way, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn, right? I'm not going to park the bus and go, look, I don't want to learn anymore, because there's other people in the business. That's, again, huge tip not to do that, right? I mean, you need to be involved in everything. But it's good to be focusing on sales and scaling, and how do I enter the US? There's an opportunity to launch in India. Is it too soon? Should we be targeting capital cities or demographics, or certain sectors and industries? So there's a lot more strategy focused on that now that I'm off the dev.
We've spent a bit of time talking about some of the strategies, US in particular, and maybe even challenging some of the ideas of emerging markets. Very easy to get it. It's easier, the neighbors, emerging market is right there, and it seems like, some time zones make a lot more sense mentally and emotionally than perhaps the US time zones, which emotionally doesn't seem natural, but these are very, very different sets of opportunities. The playbooks are challenging. US first, Asia first, US second. Do both and then try and see which one works. How do you balance? I know we've talked about this offline and
Correct.
off air, but for the audience who've not been privy to it, how much can you share first of all? And
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm not going to share everything, obviously. The easiest move was to launch in New Zealand, right? I mean, that was the most natural thing we did after launching in Australia. Can we do it? How quickly can we do it? Is it hard? Can we get job seekers? Can we get jobs on? So we've done the New Zealand launch very quickly, and you're 100% right. Where do we go next? And I think as co-founders, we are still discussing that. The opportunity in the US is great. And like I said, we have jobs there. So it's almost tempting to press the go button, right? We don't really have to do much. And suddenly we are there. The integrations that we have and are working on will enable us to work with companies like Amazon, right? It's just there. All Amazon have to do is click one button and suddenly we have them. So it's very tempting, but again, I'm so conscious of, and obviously, again, right, your experience is quite invaluable. Speaking about US, it's a different beast. It's a lot more cutthroat. You need to be ready when you enter the US. So the strategy is to launch in the US this year. I can definitely reveal that, as well as Asia, Southeast Asia. So I think Singapore will probably come before the US launched, but yeah, I'm so excited, but at the same time, yeah, maybe a little bit hesitant to do it too quickly.
And across the three markets, and you've spent time in all those markets as well. How do you see the differences in those markets, especially like in Australia? And how do you characterize the Australian market relative to the US and Singapore? They're very different markets.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's hard to predict exactly how successful you will be, not even launching in a particular market. But I think one thing I learned about the Australian market over my 8 years in the industry is how reluctant they are to change. And we did talk about it as well when we talk about enterprise clients and adoption of new tech and new systems and so on. So I definitely don't want to disrupt the new systems. However, to push new tech in the Australian market where all they've had is Seek for such a long time, just dominating, it's still really hard to chip away here. It has to be a really good product with a point of difference, which we are. So I think in that sense, US will actually be easier for us to launch when we're ready. I think I know certain companies and I know certain individuals and recruitment firms and enterprise clients who are ready to talk to us. It's just about, is technology ready for it? Do we have enough capability? Can we cover the time zone like you said? It's a bit daunting to just go, hey, we're in US. So yeah, we just have to make sure that we've got the right people in place, the tech is ready. But yeah, I actually think US will be a little bit easier than opening up the doors here in Australia.
And as you think about, if you think about the different markets, and you mentioned Singapore as well, very different characteristics as well, somewhat very different again between Australia and the US. I mean, I've spent plenty of time personally in Singapore over many years, and even in Singapore, you've got multiple markets within the same geography. You've got the multinationals on one hand, and it's a massive expat factor as well. And then you have the domestic market, and then you have the different specialization that you talked about of roles. What types of opportunities do you think make sense first? And what types of companies, I mean, you mentioned Amazon as an example, but what types of, I mean, how are you thinking about your first customer and getting that first customer and then using that as a icon to then get the second and the third and the fourth? How are you thinking about some of that?
Yeah, sure. Look, Callum, to be honest with you, when I say we have jobs in certain markets, it's with the companies that are already using us. So, as you know, a lot of this companies in Australia naturally have offices in Singapore or Hong Kong. So whoever's on our site now or is about to be will most likely be in Singapore straight off the bat, the minute we're ready to launch. In terms of the complications, maybe not complications, but yeah, the diversity of the market there, it's a really good point. The strategy we have in place for Australia, we can scrap that when we go to Singapore. So yeah, it's a totally different approach, different culture, different way of hiring, different relationship with job boards like JobStreet and JobsDB, and there's quite a lot of them out there. But saying that, because I did look after APAC initially when I was at Indeed, especially, the relationships are still there. So the questions have come to me like, can we do it? And like I said before, I said no because the tech wasn't ready. But I'm really looking forward just to saying, yep, to those enterprise clients, let's give it a go. Let's turn the tap on, and suddenly we'll have a massive jobs from leading companies in Singapore, for example.
So, you mentioned a number of times you've been very fortunate to be able to have a great team, great management team, and then some early funding to be able to drive the tech development, getting your MVP built, etc. What's been the journey like in getting your first set of capital?
It's a good question for Alex. So for me personally, and some of our investors, we've actually relied quite a lot on retail investors, but also my network. So I did go out to my network, and again, fortunate enough to chat to some of my old clients and my old contacts and old colleagues and so on. So we built up a decent pool of money relatively quickly, and I think that's relationships do matter, right? It's you don't ever burn your bridges and so on. Keep the relationships open. If someone writes to you on LinkedIn for a reference, give them a reference. So I've always been really sort of strong on maintaining the relationships in the industry and continuing after I left my last job, working this sort of 9-to-5 job, because it was quite easy just to go in the trap of, hey, I'm working on this MVP, I'm trapped in a cave, and I'm a developer. So yeah, I was very conscious of, hey, I left Indeed, but I want to talk to you. Let's reconnect. I've got nothing to offer right now, but it'd be great to chat in a couple of months. So yeah, the capital raising journey, I wouldn't say it came easy, Callum. It never is. I think if companies say, look, just rocked up and suddenly 200K just showed up at my doorstep, I think that's BS. But there's hard work involved. A lot of pitch decks, a lot of presentations. I'm based at Fishburners, just below here on level 3. There's different 90-second pitch nights, and whatever was available, I'll put my hand up. So again, that's just my mentality. Whatever's going, I'll put my hand up and give it a crack if it's a positive thing for Vpply. So again, a little tip for new startups, entrepreneurs out there, just, do everything, apply for any sort of grant or any, opportunity to present or to pitch to investors locally or overseas. And now it's quite easy overseas. So yeah, I think that was my philosophy, just to kind of put myself out there and go, look, this is where I am. I need money to build. Do you have faith in this? And this is our projections for the next couple of years.
As a first-time founder, not having track record in terms of exits, how have you been yourself been able to convince yourself that yes, you can do it, and equally so to the investors, because investors probably see you as a version that they remember with a big brand name, and now you're out on your own together with your fellow mates as co-founders. That's a different level of convincing. And what's been that experience like for you personally, as well as for the investors, and how have you gone about changing your own narrative to switch between a corporate guy to a founder?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the percentages of businesses that fail, again, it's a stat that I think it's 99% of businesses fail, right? I've always been heavy on the stats, but I don't like that one. That's a bad one to hear. So look, to be honest, I've got it on the back of my mind, but I've got it as a positive. I'm conscious of failure, but I think I'm conscious of that 1% too. And who makes it, right? Like, what do you need to do to make it? I think, every day I wake up, I've got a notepad of, 1% marginal gains, like little things that I can look at and go, okay, what can I do a little bit differently than what I did yesterday? Little tips. And I think that's something that this helps with. I wasn't born as a founder of a startup, but that's where I want to be. That's who I'm sort of inspiring to be. And changing that mindset of, businesses do fail, but I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that this, I don't know if I can swear here, sorry. I'm going to work to the best of my ability, utilize every resource available to me at any cost to make sure that we make it. And we're very close to it, to be honest. Like, there's not too much around me right now where I can go, it's just not going to happen anymore. I see this as being a product in the market that is different for job seekers and employers, and that we can scale quickly. I think that's another thing, the scalability of the model that doesn't really require anything else, right? A couple of IP addresses, trademarks and so on, and suddenly we can launch. So I'm quite excited about that, the future. And I'm not even thinking about my 9-to-5 life anymore. That's sort of over and done with for now, and for a long time. I think when I'm closer to retirement, I might work in a library or something that, just to rest my brain. But I'm really enjoying this.
Coming out of Indeed, you would have learnt a fair bit in that role and work with at some point, or heard from the original founders of Indeed, etc. Do you see yourself as, being now going forward in the future, to kind of, maybe, being at the same, having the CEO founder originally of Indeed at the same level, maybe even eclipsing that?
Well, it's a good question. Yes. I didn't set any limitations on Vpply to be second, right? It's without even thinking about it, the aspirations are to be great, right? To do great things. And I think the evolution of video versus the, diminishing nature of the importance of the CV, it's always going to be around, at least for the foreseeable future. But why can't we just flip the process or rely more on video? And, I think over 50% of all traffic at the moment is from video, and that's only going to grow. Like TikTok, all these different companies popping up, and it's not going to stop. So I think the HR industry is already adopting video. You yourself are, and most companies are, but it's going to do it in a different way, in a bigger way. And absolutely. Look, to be honest, I didn't actually meet the founders of Indeed. Indeed, even when I joined 6 years ago, they were massive. They had buildings in Austin. I was just one of the people in Australia, one of the early people. But I did my training in Dublin, which was really good. But I didn't actually meet the founders in the States. But they're great, right? It's a great product. It's growing, it's evolving, it's doing things. And I think that's another thing. How do we, from the core that we have of Vpply, where do we go next? How do we revolutionize? How do we integrate to that bigger piece of the pie, which is the whole recruitment industry? So how do we step away from the $20 billion job board space to the almost $500 billion recruitment space? And again, in our product roadmaps, we've got a couple of different pieces of tech that we'll work on to get to that space too.
Well, it's often said that you got to have big dreams. If you don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No one dreams to be, the second behind Usain Bolt. My son is really into Usain Bolt at the moment for some reason. He's just obsessed with running. He's only 3. But again, right, he never asked me, hey, Daddy, show me that guy who came second. No one knows his name. So yeah, we all have aspirations to be the best to our abilities, and yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to drive this forward and push it out to the market to be number one.
So what you guys are doing is so different to the industry. It's almost like you are the TikTok when Facebook was there, right? It's almost not like you're it's almost like you're not really competing with anybody in the marketplace, and it's a good space, and it's also a very challenging space. And if things take off, then this can be the new thing. And when new things come up, it can displace an existing industry, if you will. So, what industries do you think are potentially at risk?
Yeah, look, I think the natural evolution is for us to be involved in almost the full funnel, right? The full funnel of recruitment, including that video interview play. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of those platforms out there. I think it's a natural step to go from a video on our platform to an interview right after if you're happy with that candidate. When we're talking about industries that will, I guess become obsolete, yeah, it's a tricky one, to be honest. I don't think it's something that we thought about too much in terms of how will we, I guess, end certain industries. It's more how do we help certain industries grow and have different talent. In terms of the applications, they're very, very vast. There's people making coffees. There's people, pretending to sell clothes on a video. It's like bamboozled when I watched that one. There's people on construction sites recording, stuff below. Very dangerous. We don't promote that. But yeah, it was so interesting. A mechanic fixing a car. So we've actually got, I'm learning on the go where this could go. But I think it will really disrupt that recruitment industry and the way that people hire. How? I'm not sure yet. I think it's too early to say, but it's quite exciting. And I think it's, like I said, when I watch those videos, when I hear of something new, I'm just blown away, right? I mean, I just thought it would just be people talking and going, hey, my name's Tom and I like mountains and I've been to Fuji. That's kind of what I wanted to make. But to see someone make a coffee in 20 seconds, yeah, I was like, wow, that makes sense. Let's use it for the baristas out there or the coffee shops out there. So yeah, I think that whole hiring process will change with video.
For us, for example, I think the hiring process changed at the back of COVID. I'm actually not sure now that I think about it whether it was because of COVID we did that or was it because of growth we did that, and it was probably a combination of both.
Probably. Yeah.
Going back, I don't think I'd go back to the old-fashioned way without video, and most organizations are probably thinking in that way, or I hope they are. Look, I mean, certainly there are still the laggards of the industry where they may not be thinking about video and they haven't really quite caught on to this video-based interview. But I guess the bigger question I think I have is, and you mentioned that the change is coming, I kind of feel like the change already happened. And COVID's, I think, already changed it. And other organizations like us, for example, that have caught on to it, or others that haven't caught on to it, are just catching up to it. And things may not be out in public, but a lot of them are implementing those things to get up to the next version of that. How do you think COVID has changed the recruitment industry from your perspective, and what does it mean?
Very positive. Obviously, recruitment industry is interesting because there's either an abundance of talent or a talent shortage. So in the height of COVID, huge amount of talent, right? When I say talent, job seekers. Everyone's looking for a job, but they can't go in and do an interview. So it changed so quickly. Everything changed. Like you said, the whole interview process, all those video interview platforms just went gangbusters. We all know the story of Zoom. It's hard to imagine not having Zoom, right? Or Google Meet or Microsoft, right? It's Teams. It's just standard names. I remember my wife, she said, when it all happened, she worked in hospital. They had one video license for the whole hospital with thousands of people, and they had to share that one license for the first couple of months of COVID. It was just ridiculous. Every institution has video at the moment, and obviously HR changed overnight. So for us, it's great, just in terms of that adoption, that I could call someone in UK right now, right after this podcast, and have a video conversation, and it feels normal. I can't imagine going back either, to be honest. I think if you asked me to, hey, there's someone you can call on Zoom in London right now and to have a quick chat, I'd be like, oh, who is this, But now it's just normal. I think that the world opened up, and it's great. And I think it's great for recruitment, the fact that remote work, we didn't really touch on that, but people in the UK can work for companies in Australia using Vpply. People in Brazil can work in Hungary on Vpply. Why not, right? Everything's open. Everyone's sort of available and working together for a common goal. And I think it's quite exciting. I think it's going to be a really, really good year, and the changes because of COVID will be seen as positive in the long run.
So a lot of companies that have had technologies ready before COVID have done very well. Very, very well. I mean, you look at Zooms and Microsoft Teams, etc. I mean, they've done very well, but they've had technologies ready. It wasn't necessarily applied. You're launching technology post-COVID. Do you feel like you might have missed the boat?
Not really. And again, I've done a lot of research, and it's not a piece of tech that's a reaction to COVID, and was never going to be that. I think COVID helped us in terms of making the process easier, and even communicating with companies and all those integration conversations that I can chat to, Broadbent in London and JobAdder in Sydney, and just open up everything to work faster, and chatting to Romania and so on. It wasn't a reaction for us, and I don't think we missed the boat, because I do a lot of research on video job boards popping up globally. What we do is quite unique, because we have that constant stream of jobs coming through from all our partners, but people can apply with the video. So it's quite unique in that setup. There's different ways of setting up jobs with a video, but people apply traditionally, so there's different sort of mixed matches of what we do. But in terms of our core business fundamentals, we are still quite unique.
So what's next in your business as a startup? I mean, is it more dev? Is it more capital? Is it more sales? And how do you prioritize?
Yeah, look, a bit of everything, but ultimately more capital, marketing, and sales. I think we've got enough on the dev side, and it's running itself now. We've got a really good team in place. That's being looked after. And like I said, as much as I loved learning all about full stack developers and, different coding languages, I'm so grateful to be away from it and just focus on, scale, marketing, and money. And I just want to show early returns to our investors. So we're revenue generating now. It's not huge, but it's, again, reassuring, right? Just to go, hey, I thought of this idea, we built something, and it's making money. So how do we just accelerate that? And everyone's looking to hire people. Things are opening up. The government is releasing funds. So it's a really exciting part of the recovery, the post-COVID recovery to be in. So I think a lot on the cards for us, Callum. I don't want to disclose too much, but I guess my focus will be on sales, marketing, and just capital raising.
So if you just fast forward a little bit, let's just say it's Christmas 2021, and you're sipping your wine or your favorite drink, and you're thinking, oh my God, this was a good year. What would success look like for 2021?
Launching in different markets, but getting Australia right and New Zealand. I think that's key. And that job seeker journey, one thing that I learned about when I was at Indeed, is really focus on the job seeker. Great mantra, great philosophy, and it's embedded in anyone who's worked at Indeed. Put the job seeker first. I think if someone is trying to find a job and they're enjoying the process, or it's easy for them to do, they can tell someone else, they'll come back to the site. I think really having that focus on the job seeker. So yeah, obviously just growing that traffic base, and just pushing that video applications out there to different capital cities. And like I said, right, so we're doing lots of different targeted campaigns at the moment, but yeah, just really accelerating on that. So yeah, getting Australia right, generating some good revenue. I wouldn't say to be profitable, but we'll be pretty close to being profitable probably at that stage. And looking to raise again, I think most likely this year as well. We're looking to do a lot more, right? If we want to scale, we need a bit of money. So yeah, quite ambitious goals for the year when I'm drinking that wine, Callum. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Do you have a number in mind, or are you able to disclose that? We might have investors on the audiences right now.
Sorry, the number of wines I'm going to drink, or the number
capital raise?
Yeah, so look, I mean, at the moment, we're halfway through our pre-seed capital raise. So we've raised 150. We've got another 150 to go. And it's going to come pretty quick, right? So second half is already becoming a little bit easier than the first half. But yeah, that second capital raise, we'll probably be looking around that 750 mark at a seed level. So yeah, I think that's coming in about 4 or 5 months.
And hopefully, us working together helps us accelerate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I think the partnership with AI, and I'm so pumped about it because, yeah, it's everything you guys stand for, right? First time we spoke, we talked about machine learning and how do we pick up on different cues and signals from job seekers? How do we package things up and make the applications better? How do we provide that unique data to the employer? There's so many things we can do. And I think such transferable tech too, scalable and transferable. I think we can go, into different markets. But yeah, don't want to go into it too much. I think, yeah, we're pretty close to finishing up today. But yeah, I'm super excited, Callum. So yeah, the partnership with AI, massive. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to the top of the hour. I'm going to pass it on back to our executive production team and see if there is at least one question that the team has curated and want to ask for Tom.
Yep. So the question we have is, so as we all know that technology has been more streamlined and automated right now. And so the question from Andrew is, what then would be the roadblocks especially when we are adopting AI or machine learning or even blockchain into the HR tech space? So again, when it comes to roadblocks, there are many roadblocks. So he specifically wants to know when it comes to the quality of data and how are we going to secure that in the business field?
Complex question. I mean, everything we talk about now is in the roadmap, right? Data security, I think we talked a little bit about legal at the beginning, right? So very early on, my hats were legal and dev, more so than sales and anything else. Protecting the job seeker is critical, right? The data protection and making sure that we have the right protection in place. So yeah, look, we've got the legal parts sorted. When we talk about machine learning, again, it's quite vague, right? I mean, could mean so many different things, but everything that we will have will be with consent of the job seeker, 100%, right? There's no way to do anything that we do without a job seeker saying, yep, I'm happy with that. And again, I think that's a great sort of tool to, maybe not tool, but yeah, great thing to keep in mind when you're doing any business, just to go, all right, how do I make sure that things are sound here? So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but yeah, I mean, any machine learning, anything we do, consent of the job seeker. If we packaged any data or pass it on anywhere, consent of the job seeker, 100%.
Over to you, Callum.
So with that, I mean, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for tuning into the Sydney Startup Show. Tom, it's been such a pleasure having you on board with us today.
Thank you, Callum. Yeah, thanks everyone. Great to be here.